Welcome to Brainwaves and Breakthroughs.
All right, so today we're going deep on America's national parks.
Ooh, nice.
We've got excerpts from some texts all about the history and the creation, and some pretty amazing facts about these places.
Yeah, they are really special.
And hopefully by the end you'll know a lot more about them.
Definitely tons to learn about these national treasures.
Yeah. And, you know, when you picture a national park, you probably think of, like, sweeping landscapes.
Right, those big, iconic views, yeah.
But have you ever thought about, like, how that concept even started?
Yeah, it's true. It wasn't always like a given to just preserve land just because it's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It was a huge shift.
Yeah.
For so long, land was seen as just a resource, you
Yeah.
know, to be exploited.
Right.
And then came this idea of preserving it,
Yeah.
you know, like for its own sake and for future generations.
Yeah.
Pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, totally. And it makes you realize how much our perspective on nature has changed.
Yeah, for sure.
And we should acknowledge, of course, that Native Americans
Right.
had a deep connection to these lands
Absolutely.
for centuries.
Long before the national park idea as we know it came about
Yeah, for sure.
in the 19th century.
So where did this national park idea really take root?
Well, it all began with Yellowstone.
Ah, Yellowstone.
Back in 1872, it became the world's first national park.
I remember as a kid seeing pictures of Old Faithful erupting.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a giant magical sprinkler.
Haha.
It's easy to see why people back then thought these stories of Yellowstone were, like, exaggerated.
You can imagine.
Right, like coming back from these expeditions with stories of geysers
Holy.
shooting hundreds of feet in the air.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
Hot springs of every color you can imagine.
And wildlife, you know, unlike anything anyone had ever seen.
Yeah, it sounds pretty unbelievable.
Right.
So how did they convince everybody that this place was worth protecting?
Well, one expedition in particular,
Yeah.
the Washburn-Langford Doan expedition
Mhm.
back in 1870,
Okay.
they were really moved by what they saw. They saw this unique place so awe-inspiring that they knew it had to be preserved for everyone.
That's cool.
They were like, hold up, this place is too special to mess with.
And that's when President Grant stepped in.
Yes. He signed the act in 1872,
Cool.
declaring Yellowstone a public park,
Okay.
or pleasuring ground, as they called it, for the benefit and enjoyment of the people.
Wow.
It was about making this accessible for everyone to experience.
That's amazing. So Yellowstone was like the spark.
It-
And the fire started spreading after that, right?
That's right. The national park system started to grow,
What came after?
showcasing how diverse America's landscapes really are.
Yeah.
You've got Yosemite with those huge granite cliffs that look like something out of a fantasy movie.
Uh-huh.
Then there's Sequoia, with those giant sequoia trees that make you feel like an ant.
Wow.
And Crater Lake, it's literally a volcanic caldera filled with the deepest lake in the U.S.
That's pretty wild.
Mind-blowing, right?
Okay, you're making me want to book a trip right now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always smooth sailing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were people living on some of these lands.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Sadly, the creation of some parks did mean that Native American tribes were displaced.
Yeah.
Tribes who'd called those lands home for generations.
That's a tough thing.
It is a difficult part of the story, for sure.
Yeah, definitely makes you think.
Right.
Okay, so we've got this system of parks growing, but managing all that must have been hard.
You're telling me that's why in 1916, the National Park Service was formed, the NPS.
So those are the rangers we see patrolling and keeping everything running.
Well, they are the guardians, but there's so much more than that.
Oh.
They're scientists and educators,
Mhm.
historians even. They're like the storytellers of these places.
That's really cool.
You know, helping us understand not just what we see,
Yeah,
but why it all matters.
I like that.
They're not just protecting the parks, but they're working to make sure they're around for generations to come.
Yeah. That's incredible. So it's not just preservation.
Yeah.
It's active management and
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
That makes me wonder, what are some of the coolest or most unexpected things they've learned about these parks over the years?
Oh, there are so many. Just wait till you hear about the national park that's actually underwater.
Seriously, underwater.
Yeah, it's wild. It's called Biscayne National Park,
Biscayne.
and it's off the coast of Florida.
Yeah.
Most of the park is actually underwater,
Wow.
protecting this huge coral reef ecosystem.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's really something.
An underwater national park.
Mm-hmm.
So do they have underwater rangers?
Huh. Not sure about underwater rangers, but
Right.
they do have marine biologists and divers who study the reefs.
Right.
It's a really important habitat
Makes sense.
for all sorts of endangered species.
Yeah, we often think about the land when we think about national parks.
Right.
But the ocean's important too.
Absolutely vital to protect.
Okay, so we've got geysers, giant trees,
Mm-hmm.
underwater worlds.
Mm-hmm.
What else might surprise people?
Well, we were just talking about Yellowstone,
Yeah.
but did you know it's sitting on top of a massive supervolcano?
Hold on. A supervolcano.
Yeah.
Isn't that like a doomsday scenario waiting to happen?
Well, it has the potential to be, but
Yeah.
scientists are monitoring it closely.
Yeah.
The chances of a major eruption happening in our lifetime are tiny.
Okay, good.
But still, it's pretty wild to think about
Right.
the raw power underneath Yellowstone.
Makes those geysers seem almost tame by comparison.
It really does.
It shows you how dynamic these places are, right?
Yeah, they're always changing, even if we can't really see it.
Yeah, and speaking of change, the idea of what a national park should be has changed too.
It has, yeah.
Really? I thought it was all about protecting these like iconic landscapes.
Well, that was definitely the initial focus.
Right.
Those big, visually spectacular places that
Yeah.
take your breath away.
Makes sense.
But over time, the NPS started to realize that it was important to preserve all sorts of different ecosystems and cultural sites, too.
So it's not just about the wow factor anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Take the Everglades National Park in Florida.
Okay. Yeah. The Everglades.
It's not really known for huge mountains or anything like that.
Right. More like alligators and swamps.
But it's an incredibly important habitat.
Yeah.
It's crucial for plants and animals, lots of them endangered, and it's so important for the water cycle in that region.
It's different kind of beauty, I guess.
Absolutely, but just as important to protect.
So it's like they're expanding the definition of what's worth saving.
Yeah, it's not just about what looks amazing,
Right.
but also what has a really important role in, like, the web of life.
I like that. Yeah.
And that means recognizing that some places have historical and cultural significance, too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Like Mesa Verde National Park
Right.
in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Those cliff dwellings are so incredible.
Amazing, right.
Like something out of Indiana Jones.
The park preserves the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Pueblo people.
Yeah.
It gives us this window into their history.
It's a reminder that these parks aren't just about nature,
That's right.
but about the people who lived on these lands.
Exactly. It's all connected. You
Yeah.
can't tell the story of a place without the people.
So we've talked about hidden stories
Mhm.
and surprising facts. What about weird and wonderful things tucked away in these parks?
Oh, I've got some good ones.
Let's hear it.
I bet our listener would be fascinated to know about Death Valley.
Oh, yeah. Death Valley.
It's the hottest and lowest point in North America, right?
Right. Crazy place.
But it's also home to these mysterious sailing stones.
Sailing stones. Like they actually sail.
Well, not sailing exactly, but
Right.
they're rocks that seem to move across the desert on their own,
Oh, really?
leaving these long trails.
That's wild.
It was a mystery for ages.
How do they move? Is it magic or something?
Huh. Well, scientists figured it out. Turns out it's thin ice sheets in the winter and wind
Okay.
and the special conditions of that dry lake bed.
Interesting.
They allow these rocks to just slide around.
So it's like this perfect storm of elements that creates this weird phenomenon.
It is. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that's officially on my list of things to see.
You should. It's really something.
And it's like, even in these barren landscapes,
Right.
there's still so much wonder to find.
Exactly. And speaking of barren landscapes, I've always been fascinated by deserts.
Oh, yeah.
They're so stark and unforgiving, but there's a beauty to them, too.
I agree. I've always felt like deserts have this raw energy to them.
Mm-hmm. They make you feel small.
In a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah,
They're not lifeless either.
that's true.
Think about Joshua Tree National Park.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Joshua Tree. Those trees look like they're from a Dr. Seuss book.
Huh. They do, right?
That one's on my list, too.
It's an amazing place.
Yeah.
The Joshua trees are the stars for sure. But the park is full of desert plants and animals that have figured out how to live in this crazy environment.
That's amazing.
It's a real testament to how resilient life is, you know?
Right. It's like they found a way to thrive in a place that seems impossible.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important thing about national parks.
What's that?
Their role in scientific research.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They're like these living laboratories.
Interesting.
They provide data on everything, from climate change to how animals behave.
So we're not just preserving them, but also learning from them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Cool.
The knowledge we get from studying these areas helps us understand the natural world better.
Makes sense.
And that can help us solve problems.
Like what?
Well, studying desert plants
Okay.
that survive on almost no water could help us develop drought-resistant crops.
That would be huge.
Yeah, it's like nature's giving us a master class.
I like that.
And it's not just scientists who benefit. The NPS shares this knowledge with everyone through programs and exhibits.
That's awesome.
It's all about making science more accessible.
It makes you realize that these parks belong to all of us.
They do.
We have to take care of them.
We do. It's up to all of us.
And, like we've been talking about, that future isn't guaranteed.
Right.
So there's one challenge in particular that I think we should talk about.
Right.
How do we make these amazing places accessible to everyone,
Right.
but also protect them from, all the people visiting?
That is the million-dollar question.
It really is a tough one.
It is. It's tricky.
It really is. On the one hand, we want people to see these places,
Right.
connect with nature, be inspired.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, we don't want to love them to death.
Yeah, it's a real concern.
And they are more popular than ever.
Oh, yeah.
So what kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, there's the obvious stuff.
Okay.
More traffic, more noise, trash.
Right.
Those might seem minor, but they can really change the experience for other people.
Yeah.
And they can even disrupt wildlife.
And I imagine all those people put a lot of wear and tear on the parks themselves, right?
Absolutely. Trails, campsites, all that infrastructure.
Right.
It gets a lot of use.
And some people even damage those sensitive natural features.
Yeah, it's true. Venturing off trails,
Yeah.
trying to get that perfect photo.
Like that saying, take only pictures, leave only footprints.
Right.
Not everyone got the memo, I guess.
Sadly not. And when you've got millions of visitors every year,
Yeah.
even a small percentage of people behaving badly can make a big difference.
It adds up.
It does.
So what can be done? Can we balance preservation and access in a way that works?
It's a challenge for sure,
Yeah.
but the NPS is trying different things.
Like what?
Well, some parks are limiting the number of visitors,
Okay.
especially during busy times.
So like a reservation system.
That's right.
That makes sense.
Control the flow.
Other parks are investing in eco-friendly transportation,
Okay.
like shuttle buses and bike paths, so people slow down a little
Exactly.
and see the park in a different way.
Right.
I like that.
And of course, education is huge.
Yeah, education's always important.
If visitors understand why it's important to stay on the trails, to pack out their trash, to be respectful of wildlife,
It makes a difference.
it does. It's about turning tourists into stewards, basically.
I like that, turning tourists into stewards.
It's about giving people a sense of responsibility.
Yeah,
So they're part of the solution.
makes sense.
And another thing is encouraging people to explore lesser-known parks.
Yeah, spread the love.
Right.
I bet there's some amazing hidden gems out there.
There are so many.
We're lucky to have such a diverse and vast park system, really.
We are. It's a real treasure.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive on America's national parks, what's the key takeaway for our listener?
I think it's this. National parks are way more than just pretty places.
Right.
They're these living ecosystems.
Yeah.
Cultural treasures. They inspire us, teach us. They're a legacy worth protecting.
And that protection requires all of us to do our part.
Absolutely. We need to be informed, engaged, responsible.
Well said. I think our listeners are ready for that.
Hopefully.
So next time you're looking up at a redwood tree or hiking through a canyon,
It's amazing.
remember, you're not just a visitor.
Right?
You're a guardian of something really special.
That's a great way to put it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.